DMs and say, hey, I'm teaching a class tonight. Because people will act like they don't see it.
Okay, we're live. All right, bye. I'll call you later.
Okay, all right.
Okay, bye. Hey, Viv. Can you hear me, Viv? Oh, I gotta unmute you. Okay, can you hear me, Viv?
I hear you now. I hear you now.
Oh, okay, great. Hey,
yes.
Hey,
girl, how you doing?
So big. They are so wonderful and beautiful. Can you believe we got this far?
I know, right? How have you been?
Oh, I've been so good. Thank you. Thanks for joining. I just, you know, this was just like an impromptu thing, but I just thought that there's just so much information. I won't keep my mask on the whole time. I'm just gonna give it a few minutes to let everybody get in. Hey, Carolyn.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Alexis, admit. So y'all, I'm no Zoom expert. I'm always on Zoom, but I'm usually, hey, Alexis. Let me see. Oh my goodness. How do I unmute? Because I can't hear. You can hear me though, Viv, right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, connected to audio. All right. So it's almost 3 o'clock. Oh, it's time, huh?
Oh, wait a minute.
Hey guys, Carolyn, can you hear?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Okay, hey, how are you?
I'm doing well.
I'm not all sure. I mean, this is kind of an impromptu informational meeting. Anyway, I have on my COVID mask. I'm not going to keep it on the whole time, but I just figured it doesn't matter. We're recording anyway, and so we're just going to go ahead and give out the information. So welcome to COVID-19 or Surviving COVID-19 with Alicia Melvin. Thank you so much for joining. The reason that I decided to do this is because I get so much information consistently, especially with me being an 8A certified government contractor. I mean, I'm in on White House calls sometimes, and I just know that this is just like trying times and folks are trying to figure out what's going on. For instance, as far as the evictions are concerned, a lot of people are like, okay, well, they don't have work, so they can't pay their, you know, their bills or whatever. And they're like, what's going to happen to me when this is all over with? And so I actually called down to a couple courthouses and spoke to a couple of the clerks to see, you know, how they were handling. And so I just have to be upfront. Yes, they are still accepting the filings, but they're not actually having any of the hearings unless the hearings are going to be like emergency. So say for instance, for example, she told me with like criminal activity, that was one of the, you know, like if it's something like that, then of course, then they're gonna, you know, have an emergency eviction. So that was down at Judge Riley's court in Collin County. But I know that this is, if you guys have any questions for me, I do have some topics. I was gonna talk about the unemployment and the compensation, what that looks like, what that means. I was gonna talk about the small business disaster loans, the new rules on the mortgages that they're handing out. I'm not, and just talk about, let's see what else I had on here. Oh, just some of the simple things like your car insurance, credit cards, mortgage payments. So, does anybody have any questions for me that they want to know about any of those issues?
Oh, that sounds good to me.
Okay. Well, I'll just tell you, so I'm gonna just start with the unemployment. I mean, how many of you know anyone who's just by a show of hands that has actually lost their job through the whole COVID situation? Anybody?
I do.
Okay, yeah. So it's like a lot of the essential workers, who have lost their job. And when we say essential, everybody used to think, oh, I'm essential, I got my job. But that's not exactly what essential means. Essential is those people on the front lines that are still out there getting up, going to work every day so that we can actually get meals, get groceries, and have clean buildings, cleaning out the buses so for those people who are still getting on the buses. So it actually ended up meaning, oh, you're not that special. No, it's not about you being essential. The essential workers are the healthcare workers and the people who are out there, police officers, frontline folks. So anyway, what happens when you lose your job or they stop paying? So I just want to tell you just right up front that the unemployment is state by state, right? The government kind of funds it because you pay into, the unemployment, but it's state by state. So every state is doing something different. But one thing that they all do have in common, and I'm just gonna pull it up. One thing that they all do have in common is this new federally funded assistance called the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. So it's the PUA. And so what that does is it provides up to 30 weeks of unemployment benefits. So you would get your regular benefits plus the $600 that the federal government is contributing, right? So if you're entitled to benefits, you would get your regular benefits. But just let's say you're a sole proprietor or a 1099 and you haven't paid any taxes, at all into the system. Well, what they're saying is that you, in fact, are entitled to have this PUA, this Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, which is $600 a week, and it is supposed to backdate to January 27th. So backdate to January 27th, even if you hadn't started receiving it. So say, for instance, you had not applied because, you're just not sure. I'm seeing that with a lot of hairstylists, a lot of, just, I guess, folks who maybe just aren't, for what one reason or another aren't filing taxes. And I don't know. I mean, it just depends on what folks have going on, but I mean, it happens, or you may have, owed taxes or anything like that. So there may be some reason that, you're not actually officially paying into a system or, so what they're saying though is that they're going to make this money available. So at a very minimum, you would get that $600, right? For what they had was 13 weeks is what they're saying that they're going to guarantee. So they're going to take it from January and then they're going to do that all the way until July. And I think that date on there, it's going to be sometime in July that they're going to stop it, but they're going to say no matter what, the benefits in totality will end in December 31st. So all these programs, so if you're on regular unemployment, they're planning on extending that unemployment. So instead of the 26, they're going to go up to the 39. So they're going to add those additional weeks. And so that's how you're going to get those additional 13 weeks. So typically it's 26, then you get the 13. So you're going to have the 39 weeks of unemployment. In addition to that, you're going to get the $600. But if you have not paid into the program, so say you were self-employed or you hadn't paid any taxes, the system is up and operating, but what's happening is people are getting denied. So Texas, I spoke to the director of the Texas Workforce Commission. Pennsylvania, same thing. They haven't been equipped, right? Their systems haven't been equipped to take these kinds of applications. So in order to adapt, or some of them, they didn't adapt, they're adapting now. And so they're saying it's available. What they're doing is what I've been told directly by the directors and directly by the director of the Texas Workforce Commission is that they are now what they're doing is they're going to call all those folks who were denied initially that were self-employed or 1099, and they are going to pay them and backdate those benefits. That is what I'm hearing. But it is the government, y'all. So, just like they just ran out of money for the disaster loans, and they changed the $10,000 payment that they were going to give entrepreneurs. I'm not sure. Muted. I'm gonna. If you raise your hand, if you have a question for me, because we're here in static, so I'm gonna just mute it. Okay. So I don't want to be the only talker. So if you have a question on anything that I've talked about so far, can you let me know before I move on? Because there's one more thing that I want to talk about is what those qualifications are for the people. What are some of the things you would need to show if you hadn't actually paid into the unemployment compensation system? Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Okay, let me see who that is. I'm trying to see the hand raised. All right. I'm just going to unmute so I could hear. Does anyone have any questions about the unemployment compensation and the dual payments?
You're talking about unemployment and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. All right, okay.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and mute it. All right, so just FYI, so if you have friends who hadn't filed their taxes or for whatever reason or weren't really claiming that income through a paycheck, what you can do is you can tell them, I'm just going to read off a list here, is that these are going to be the things that you could show to prove that you were self-employed. So some of the acceptable documents would, of course, obviously would be like a recent paycheck stub, right? So even if they weren't deducting anything, they're gonna look at, you could do bank receipts showing deposits. Obviously you could do your 1099s. They're saying that you're gonna, as a self-employed person, you're gonna be able to show some billing notices that you provided to your customers if you did any kind of billing. You're going to be able to show recent advertisements for your businesses or services. And so if you, and maybe even a current business license, any kind of ledgers, just, and also building leases. So I know that's a long list. And if you guys, want this list afterwards, I'll give it to you. But those are some of and you could just email me to my personal email at attorney, ATTORNEY, Alicia, ALISHA, Melvin, MELVIN @gmail.com. I had to spell it all out. It's the longest. But so just so they know, if you don't have the tax returns, if you haven't paid into the system, that you're going to be able to use some other things like billing statements, things that you billing notices, also the building leases, business licenses, bank receipts, or 1099s, or anything like that to prove that you actually had it. That's what they're going to be asking for, right? That you were actually making money outside. So that's what you would need, self-employed or 1099s. That's unemployment. I don't have much more other than to tell you that they're adding that additional 13 weeks if you already qualified. On top of that additional 13 weeks, they're doing the $600 per week. So just say, for instance, I think our max benefits in Texas is $521. So if you're 521 and you take the additional $600, that's 1,100 and, what is it, 1,121 bucks. So that ain't bad for a weekly amount if you can qualify for the unemployment. And even if you don't qualify for both, you could just go ahead and get the 600. And even if you get denied, because what some of the states are saying is their system was already set up to automatically deny you. So don't appeal it, right? And so some of the states are requiring you to appeal it in order for you to get that 600, because they didn't have the system in place. So they just automatically rejected you by looking at how much you contributed. And once they looked at that amount, they realized that you didn't have, anything. And so it just gave you an automatic, you don't qualify. But I don't want you to fall for that. And that's one of the reasons I want you to go ahead and appeal it or reapply, because from what my understanding is they are having to backdate those funds to that January 27th date. And so once the epidemic started. So do I have any questions? Okay. Well, I'm just gonna start touching base on the disaster, the disaster assistance loan. So, okay, what was it? The 16th, when did we run out of money? I think the 16th we ran out of money on the disaster loans. I applied for the disaster loan, I believe back in, oh gosh, I applied the 29th of, the 28th of March. Okay, so what happened was I get this call as a supplier of it, and they keep us in the loop, you know, because I'm federal contractor. I'm also states and cities as well. So, but federal is a whole nother level. And so they gave a call and they're like, hey, it opens up tomorrow. You know, the applications are going to be out there, but it was like a backlog, so you couldn't get into the system. So you had to do like physically, like do. I have a copy of it, a paper application with them. And at that time, they were asking for, you know, your 4506, which is your tax transcripts, and you to sign all these docs. And then you just had to upload them by using box.com. And 2 days later, and so you're thinking, oh, great, but they were giving you no confirmation. You're thinking, oh, great, I'm submitted, right? Because it says your documents have been submitted successfully. So fast forward 2 more days, they actually change. They send out an email, the SBA, Small Business Administration, and they say, hey, if you already applied, that no longer applies. We've changed the rules, and now you gotta go on to the SBA.gov. If you guys need the link, I'll send you that link, but it's SBA.gov and it's under disaster loan applications. Now, if you look at it, it says that they say that they're no longer accepting applications, that all the funds have been appropriated, meaning they basically, and so my application that was in from the 28th, and then I had to resubmit it once they required us to use the short form on the web on the 28th. There's no telling, but at least when you submit it on the 30th, you got an application number. And so we were just told, what, on the 16th that they ran out of funds. Still to date, they have not told the small business owners, you know, who will qualify, how you will qualify. All they said is just like with the stimulus checks, if you filed your 2018, 2019. So for a lot of the business owners or the small business owners, if your business was interrupted by this and you can prove that you were in business as of January, that date in January that I told you, then, I mean, it's worth a shot to apply. And I'm going to tell you why. That money, so right now they're in their meeting, right? They're back in there trying to pass a new stimulus to do this funds. What you guys keep hearing about on TV is PPP. And you say, well, what is PPP? What's the difference between a PPP, which is it's supposed to be a paycheck protection loan, right? I mean, protection program, PPP, paycheck protection program, and an EIDL, or EIDL is what some are saying, EIDL, economic injury disaster loan. And so I used to work, I did not work, I worked Hurricane Sandy at the Small Business Administration as an attorney advisor approving those loans. I've actually had phone calls at least 4 times to come back in to work on this one, except I have to look out for the business right now. And so until I can get things situated with that, I'm not willing to go in, but I actually am going to call them back again today, but I have been called 4 times to go back because the need is so high for attorneys, because we have to review that stuff and sign off on those loan documents. And so that's a big deal. And so while they keep saying, oh, we got rid of all the money, all those billions of dollars, and so now we need, you know, a couple more billion, what they're not saying is that the PPP is where you hear about the Ruth Chris, who got like, what did they get, like 24, $27 million? These big, huge franchises that are getting lots of money. But I have seen success stories, and I do know friends who were able to have those success stories. So I'm going to tell you, the payment protection program, 75% of that is supposed to go to the business owner is supposed to pay those employees. And then 25% of it they can use for operating expenses. And it's like a 1% loan, and you don't have to start repaying for about 6 months. The difference is that is supposed to be paycheck protection, right? But they're getting that money saying to the government, okay, well, we want to keep our staff. And so what they're doing is all they're having to do to the bank, and they're going, and the bigger banks are doing it, and some would say the little banks are doing it, but if you had a prior business relationship, it seems like you're getting priority. So a lot of small guys are out there complaining. So I'm sure you're hearing this, and actually it's going to become an uproar if we don't get more funding, because you just can't treat the smaller guy, the little guy like that, who's actually out here working every day to stimulate this economy. For the economic injury disaster loans, those they're doing up to $25,000, no collateral whatsoever. So you don't have to put anything up. What they're not telling you is that they are going to run credit on it. They're going to run credit on it for the PPP. They're going to run credit on it for but their credit, the score that they want is kind of so low that, you know, it's worth a shot. So what I'm saying is, I hear everyone say, oh, don't wait on the government, don't wait on the government. Yeah, nobody's saying wait on the government, but you need to try if you're actually in business. And if you can prove the same way that I told you guys about the unemployment compensation, you're gonna just need to prove that you were actually in business somehow. Like you got some bank deposits or something like that that can show that you were in business. I don't know if they're sticking to the rule about, you know, 2 years prior or a year prior, that you had to be in business a year prior to the disaster. But I do know that they are taking as well sole proprietors. So what does that mean? Sole proprietors, 1099s, they can apply for their unemployment. Right now, they haven't cleared up the rules, so they can apply for their unemployment compensation. They can apply for the disaster assistance. And they can do all of that at the same time, because if you're struggling in your business and you don't have customers and you're not working and you're actually really not working, then you can do both, right? So just wanted to let you guys know that. I have a list, and this is state by state, and I know that there's people on the call from different states. But I wanted to talk about the moratoriums on foreclosure. Does anybody know anyone who's even facing that? Because I think most of that, I'm opening it up, but so anybody can speak, but most of the banks are automatically, they're either doing a forbearance, right, period. I know Wells Fargo is putting it 3 months on the back end. So just in case, I mean, it's easy enough. It was a simple, you know, log into the account, press a button, and then you could like put the mortgage on hold. Other family members of mine, they had more like a forbearance type of a period where they just forbear it, for, you know, just left it alone for a couple months till we see what happens. Personally, on the vehicles, I was able to, you know, call them and say, and at first I didn't know if I would need it really. I was like, I don't know, but cash is king during this time. I mean, like, cash is king. So whatever you can get and hold on to. So if you know somebody, if they got stimulus, I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do with their stimulus money, but cash is really king right now. And there are even some places who are giving away like a free stock. You get one free stock on all these different websites. So I've been logging into those websites and getting a free stock over here, a free stock over there. Just taking it, you know, not really taking advantage, but seizing the opportunities that are before us. Does anybody have any questions about the small business loans? Is there anything that you guys would like me to cover or talk about outside of what I've talked about, the unemployment and the small business loans?
Alicia, this is Carolyn. I think that was a great point about the small business loans. I did apply, and I think I did receive an application number, but what it stated was that you would receive, you would not receive an email stating that your application was received, but once it was reviewed,
Right.
that you would receive some type of communication back for those loans.
Yes, and that's in fact what most everybody is waiting on, because as soon as they stop the funding, it's almost like they stop giving that email. Now I do have a link. I have seen the email. I can tell you that. I have seen the email, and I've seen what the approval email looks like, and it's going to give you a link and tell you to log in. And then that old EIDL $10,000 advance that they promised everybody is just no longer there. Now they're like $1,000 per employee, or so yeah, same Carolyn. That's the same that's going on. And if there's a guy on YouTube that shared like his whole login of accepting his loan. I mean, he was a real estate agent out of California, but it was $15,000. I don't know what his $15,000 was like, but I have friends. I know people who have gotten well over, 500,000, and some just maybe got 100,000. So, there's that. I can't. So there's that information. And so I know that it's happening, but I think that it's on a standstill. So Carolyn, just to be clear about that, what I have friends. So what I'm hearing is that the people who are already in the queue, so do you know what date you did your application by any chance? Because I know mine, it says the 30th. I was trying to pull it up to see, but I know mine, I redid it on the 30th. Do you happen to know what date you did it?
I saved it. Let me check and see what date it was saved on my computer.
Yeah, because one of the guys who posted like the day before yesterday that he received his check, he said that he applied on the 30th of March. And so, but I don't know, because like his was only $15,000. I know people that it took a lot longer because it was a pretty big, and so those required some sort of collateral. But what was the other thing that I wanted to tell you? Okay, so I want you guys to look on your state, each state, the state that you're in, and if you have already or know someone who's already applied for unemployment and been denied, to go ahead and reapply. The disaster loan money is, it's supposed to be replenished. I mean, they thought they had a deal last night and they were going to pass that through. But now they're saying hopefully they'll get a deal today. So we'll all be on the lookout to see if they got a deal, and then how they'll allocate those funds. When they said appropriated, the funds had already been appropriated. That's pretty interesting, because when you appropriate funds, right, that means they've already been apportioned. So if they're apportioned already, then that should mean that you, Carolyn, if whatever you qualified for, whatever everybody, that those funds are still there, and it's just a backlog on the applications. So if you just make sure your date was before the cutoff, well, if you got a number, then you made it before the cutoff. So
yeah,
it may not
have a
be
number. April the 10th. The document was created when I saved it April the 10th.
Okay, so it's not going to be immediate, and that's because I listened to something Bishop Jakes was saying, and to his flock, and he was just he actually was talking to anybody who wanted to talk about finances, because he feels that he also feels it's important to let people know what's going on financially, because we don't want folks to get discouraged. I mean, the money is out here. You've worked, somebody in your family work. I mean, it's kind of, you deserve it. It is taxpayer money. And so I say, go for it, apply for it, and see, and remember, under 25,000. no collateral. And even if it is collateral, it's collateral within the business. So it's not even nearly like when I worked there. And so Katrina, Rita, all these other hurricanes, I only worked Sandy. I had friends in for Rita and Katrina. So what basically, they had all these requirements that in order to qualify for this loan. This is unprecedented. So this is like a first time. And so I say that get your stuff ready, look for your pay stubs, look for the checks, look for whatever you can, try to gather some information. And if you have questions about that information that you're gathering, feel free to reach out to me and just be like, Alicia, what do you think about this? And I'll just give you my honest opinion about it based on the fact that I've seen this application. I've seen what the end of this application looks like. I can't say I totally understand everything about it because they lied to us and told us everybody was getting $10,000. Put the application in and within 3 days, you're gonna have $10,000. I don't know if it was a way to get us to sign up or what it was, but oh goodness. That's great. So I'm running out of time. So I wanted to hit some of the other points. So landlord tenant stuff, just to backtrack on that. Every state is handling it different. If your courts are closed in your states, what I've been told, and I called around, like I said, Texas, PA, couple states, what they said is they're still accepting those applications, but what they're doing is not having the hearings unless there's some sort of emergency criminal activity occurring on the property or some other reason that they have to get that particular person out. So how soon they're going to get to it and hear those kind of things, and what are the judges going to say? We never know what the judges are going to say, right? It doesn't matter what kind of hearing I'm going into. We don't know what the judge is going to say. The judge could be having a bad day and the judge could decide something totally different than what you thought. So that's why we don't promise our clients. So I could never sit here and say, okay, and it'll be okay. But I think everyone is going to take into account that we're in COVID-19 and that you may have not, had work. I just think that the courts are going to require you to prove that you didn't have work. So if like someone's just like withholding rent for no reason, then they may have a problem and move a little bit more quickly. But right now you have some time. And I would also gather, I had a thought about this the other day, I would also gather that the landlords who are getting assistance from the government themselves to cover, because they're getting forgiveness on these loans and all that stuff. So if they're receiving something like that, as an attorney, I would completely and totally argue that they were also being unjustly enriched because they were receiving, monies from that program when they could at the same time. And so they were essentially in effect being covered. And so I don't know, I would argue that for sure. You got to argue something. You can't go to court and not say anything. So moratoriums on foreclosures, pretty much a lot of folks have agreed. That is not across the board. That is not every single state. And so places like New York, which, hey, my swearing in was on the 25th. Now I don't have New York. Let me stop. I'll mute it. And so my hearing, so I'm a little delayed with the offices in New York, but that's okay because we know the licenses are there and we're ready to go. We just got to get sworn in and then get it popping. So excited about that, but it's just going to take me a little time. But I'll tell you that New York operates a little bit differently because they don't necessarily have like the big MLS like we have in other states. So the brokers got together and then, they kind of all decided and made these decisions. And so that they weren't going to move forward with, some of the evictions. And then the banks are making their own rules, which brings me to the banks. So the mortgage situation has totally changed. I just had a closing this morning. My client she was totally freaked out because last week we got a call that with the whole COVID-19, they've changed the rules and restrictions. So typically with an FHA loan, you're talking about 580 is like the minimum score that you would need. And so, and then you would have a, 3.75% down payment, and you can get into this home. Well, I'll tell you what they did. They have now some of the lenders, and so here you got the lenders calling us as the brokers or the realtors or whatever. They're calling us and they're saying, hey, listen, your client no longer qualifies. Well, my client's been waiting for months. My client's been through approval, and now you're going to say they don't qualify. Oh, well, HUD changed the rules. Don't believe the hype. HUD did not change a single rule. HUD is FHA, right? So look it up. They never changed anything from 580. I called one of the lenders that I know, and she got on the phone and she explained to me. I just said, listen, I need some honest answers to what's going on. And she explained to me that the lenders themselves are putting the overlays on these loans. It's a huge, it's only going to get worse, guys, because it's almost as if it's discriminatory in nature, because it's gonna affect a group of people way more than it's gonna affect another group of people. And so what they're now doing is saying, oh, we need like a 680. I mean, come on, from a 580 to a 680, that's a big dang on deal. And then they're saying you need a lot more money in reserve. So they want to see, like, you've got, say your bills are $3,000, $4,000 a month. They're going to want to see like 3 months of that in the bank, plus whatever you bring to the closing. So that is the things that they're doing. So don't let them tell you that if it's an FHA rule, it's not an FHA rule. So if they can't do it, go to another lender, because each lender, it's like a free for all. It's almost just like the governors out here. It's a free for all. Should we shut down? Should we not shut down? We're going to let people work. We're going to not let people work. It's just a total free for all. So don't want you to be discouraged about that. Do want you to know that these are lender overlays, and these are investors protecting themselves. So when you have companies like Open Door and those people who were buying up investment properties and Redfin, all these, and how they're laying off and getting rid of people because they're investors, right? And so they were investing in real estate, and now they are afraid that their investments will be lost, right? And so now they're putting the requirements all the way up here for you to qualify. But not every lender is sticking to that. Some of the lenders are saying it's enough if we have an FHA guarantee. So guys, with that, I just wanted to, I guess we covered that. Only thing is, if you haven't already got a call from I know you've probably seen the State Farm commercial from your car insurance company, make sure you reach out to them and ask them about the discount, especially if you haven't been driving the car, because they've saved so much money that they need to give some of that money back. And they know that. And so I know our insurance policy is as good as, it's as good as your service provider, because our insurance broker called us and we didn't even have to make the phone call to say, hey, expect a refund. And so there was that. And then let's just see, I had the insurance, and then of course with the credit cards are forgiven, and so were the student loans. So everybody is willing to give, a little leeway here. And I just want you to remind people not to be discouraged just because they got a denial on the unemployment, or a denial or haven't heard on the loans, or we don't know if there's new funding, to go ahead, apply for it anyway. If you have any questions about it, it's a very short application. Who knows if it'll change? But if you have any questions about it, do not hesitate to reach out. I don't want a portion of your money to help answer a question. I just want to be a resource in case you do have a question, or want to be able to give someone the information that they need, so that everyone can make it through this thing and we can get back on track. And I think that is the only reason that I am doing it, is to spread the information and the knowledge. And so I appreciate you guys attending. And if you happen to unmute all, if anybody has a question, let me know. Otherwise,
Thank you very much. Very informative.
Well, thank you for coming. And I don't ever do stuff like this other than like in work settings, so it's just kind of weird. So I really appreciate you guys, and I'll look at the recording and see where I need to improve. later.
Thank you,
It's
Alicia.
so good to see you. I wish I
Very
could see
informative.
everyone's face. And yeah, just reach out if you need me, okay? And
Thank
if you
you so
want
much.
I have the link. If you're interested in it, the sheet that tells what they're gonna need if they're self-employed, because they're gonna be asking for that at the SBA as well. They're gonna be asking for that information, okay?
Thank
And
you.
even if you don't know what you should or shouldn't put, you know, so let me know. And I appreciate you guys and have a good rest of the day.
All righty, you too.
All righty, take care, guys. Bye, Lexi.
Bye, Alicia.
Love you, girl.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.